Real Life Ministries. Welcome to the OverTime Podcast. And as you know, we're one church in 4 locations, and about once a series, 4 or 5 weeks, somewhere around there, we preach a sermon from the from the Post Falls campus that is then video streamed out to all 4 campuses, or 3 other campuses. And so this series just began. It's called UnBelievable, and it was week 1, and we were talking about the existence of God. And we were talking about how whether you're a naturalist, meaning it's sort of a closed system, there's no supernatural, there's just the natural world. The naturalist view is everything comes from within the box and happens randomly, accidentally, by the laws of nature. And we were talking about how we believe that is a faith. And then there's theism, which is also a faith. And so it's faith versus faith, and which one makes more sense? And I made it clear that for me, faith doesn't mean blind faith. I just jump without any evidence that there's something to jump to. No, I think there's plenty of evidence that then I have to make a step of faith based on good evidence into the realm where I can't reproduce it. I can't empirically sort of re-engineer it. I can't see it happen in front of me. There's certain things in events that I can't reproduce, and it can't be reproduced in front of me right now. So I have to take it by faith that certain things fit the world we live in. The story itself is true based on good evidence, based on good witnesses, based on some reproducible experimentation. So what we're talking about is which faith, naturalism or theism, best explains the evidence. And so I actually talked about 4 reasons I believe in that there's a God, and I place my trust in theism, the God of the Bible, versus naturalism. And the 4 sort of scientific facts where the universe itself comes into existence. It's not eternal. The Hubble telescope proves that there was a beginning. And when you're talking about causality, anything that comes into existence has to have had a cause. For the universe, for some time, people thought it was eternal. Therefore, there was no need for supernatural. Just time, space, energy over time could do sort of miraculous things. But with the understanding that the universe came into existence, now we have to figure out what's the best explanation for that. Genesis 1 says, in the beginning, God, he pre-existed. He's spaceless, timeless. He's not matter. He created the heavens and the earth, space, time, energy. And as you walk through the book of Genesis, God created the world. He then created, he shaped the universe, then he shaped the world, then he shaped non-living matter into living matter, then consciousness. So the big 4 miracles, I called them, were the universe comes into existence. Number 2, the fine-tuning of the universe that made it possible for life to start on planet Earth. Thirdly, the miracle of non-living matter becoming living matter. Fourthly, living matter becoming conscious of itself. So those are the big 4 that I talked about that I think all lead to the existence of God. And so I'm actually here today with my good friend Lance. Normally, we have the pastors from the other churches, campuses here, and since they didn't preach it, they've got other things to do to get ready for this week. And I lured my good friend Lance, our communications director. We've done a mini podcast together. I got you to come in and have a conversation to get our life groups ready for their small groups, but also to give some more information or discussion about what we talked about.
Yeah, and as you know, I'm easily tricked, and so therefore I'm here. But I do like this topic. There's a lot of different ways that we can talk about Christian evidences and apologetics. But this topic that you had for the sermon is just under the umbrella of, I would say, the universe. I would say creation, and that kind of genre, the beginning, right?
Right.
So I'm wondering, we grew up, you and I in our age group, grew up in a time where evolution was taught, before it was just creation, then evolution, and now evolution. When we were kids, evolution was the norm in science class, and kind of
macroevolution.
Yes,
from an amoeba all the way to all forms of life. Yeah.
Yes, and even though it seems like a big jump, but that's what we were taught. My question is, it feels like even somebody that I would consider a devout Christian might have areas that they think about the universe, creation, those kind of things, that actually is kind of a blend of those two. And so I would like to, those questions might actually be in our life groups right now.
Right.
So I would like to ask you
what I hear you saying, and just repeat it.
Yeah.
You're saying that it's possible for people to believe in macroevolution as a Christian. Mm-hmm. But rather than the evolution that they teach in the secular world, it's that there's a God who rather than undirected random accidental processes, he used the process of evolution. He directed it. So evolution was directed process. We call it theistic evolution, and that's how we got life itself on planet Earth.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
I think we blend things that don't necessarily need blended. For instance, the actual 7 days. If I said 7 days, because 1 day is like 1,000 years, so therefore was it actually 7 days? What would your response to that be?
You're looking at Genesis. There was an evening and a morning, right? Day one. The Hebrew word there is for a literal 24-hour period of time, but there are times where it can be used in a different way. And then you're talking about the New Testament passage that says God's not slow. As some think about slowness, he's waiting to return. A day is as 1,000 years to the Lord. So you're blending these two concepts together to make it possible for sort of an old earth idea that God wasn't actually dealing with literal days. He was dealing with epochs of time. And so he did it over millions and billions of years. And so it's a way sort of to have a Christian not feel like they're silly or ignorant to the secular world. And I think what most people don't know is evolution wasn't designed, beginning with Darwin and scientists since then, it wasn't designed to explain how God created the earth. It was created to explain away a need for God at all. And so they were trying to come up with a naturalistic way to believe the earth came into existence, and life comes into existence. The primordial soup, the initial amoeba, life, and then it becomes more complex. And so these guys' goal was not to explain how God did things. It was to explain away God. Now, what Christians have done is sort of adopted this idea that evolution is proven. And then they just want to add God to it. But I don't think that's warranted at all. I don't think macroevolution is proven at all, and for a variety of different reasons. Now, microevolution is the belief that within the DNA there's the ability to adapt. A dog can become a variety of different species of dogs, right? Or you've got your Chihuahuas, you've got your wolf, right? DNA can actually change, adapt at the at the small sort of levels. Macroevolution is the belief that the amoeba could grow into a fish, could grow into, a lizard, could grow into a bird, right? Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of scientists who don't believe that. The whole transitional forms, if that were to be true, there would be transitional forms all over the place.
Is that why that early on, I remember as a little kid reading a book about dinosaurs and it said like 400 million or something like that. I mean, that's a long time. Is that why secular people have tried to extend it, because it's like, well, we don't see a gap of time where we see this evolution that we're talking about.
That's part of it.
However, if we go a million, we're just upping the chances, so maybe there's a potential.
Right.
The longer it is, the
they
higher the potential.
They don't see non-living matter becoming living, and we can't reproduce that. Mm-hmm. So they add time to the equation. Mm-hmm. If you had enough time, these things could happen. And there's all kinds of analogies. You could, it's like if you give monkeys typing on a typewriter, there's this old analogy. How long would it take them, if they were given enough time, to come up with a Shakespeare novel? Mm-hmm. You could put as much time as you want into this. Doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. The second law of thermodynamics says that things left to themselves don't wind up, they wind down. They don't become more complex. They actually, achieve energy death. They actually wind down, left to themselves. That's mm-hmm. the law of thermodynamics says left to itself it goes from higher level to lower level. Now, when you get involved, you can actually take knowledge from the last generation and build upon it. When you bring intellect into it, intelligence into it. And so what they're trying to do is say, given enough time, the simple will become complex. Mm-hmm. And it will go through, life itself will not stay within parameters. It will actually break parameters to be, one thing will become something else, and on it goes. And so they are sort of coming up with a mechanism, and they'll use things like, they come up with all these sort of transitional forms, Piltdown Man, different sort of Neanderthals, different kinds of things, and they actually get little pieces of skull and then computer generate whole. I mean, the stuff they do to come up with their versions of things, and there's so many scientists who have just gone, and then there's great scientists like Michael Behe who has come up with what's called the irreducible complexity of a cell, mm-hmm. or a part of a cell. And evolution, Darwin himself said, if you don't find the transitional forms between one thing to the next, mm-hmm. Then evolution collapses on itself. And so what irreducible complexity says is that there are certain components that have to be there for life. You have to go from one thing to the next immediately, all at once, multiple factors all at once. It can't develop over time. If you don't start with it in the beginning, it dies. It doesn't continue on. Mm-hmm. And so there's all kinds of reasons why I don't believe in macroevolution. And then you've got the carbon dating, the different kinds of dating they do based on radioactivity. And the problem with that is there are all kinds of things that can impact radioactivity. Mm-hmm. Water can impact radioactivity. And so you are basing these things on inexact sciences, sciences, a lot of conjecture, a lot of presuppositionalism, all starting with the idea that there has to be a naturalistic explanation. Intelligence can't be involved in the process. Mm-hmm. Outside, it has to be a closed system. So you're saying this has to happen by itself, and that's not where the evidence leads. Mm-hmm. And then, I think it was Thursday, somebody came up to me and said, well, Jim, what do you do with if you're going to believe that God created the earth in 6 days and rested on the seventh, how do you deal with the universe where it takes millions of years for the light from a star to reach planet Earth? And so it must be millions and billions and trillions of years, right? Because it takes that long for light to come. And again, if you start with a creature, a supreme being, I don't like calling him a creature, a supreme being who's outside of time, space, and matter, who can speak the universe into existence, then God can do things in ways that human beings can't fathom. And I think about this. I'll use the example of if you believe that God created Adam, and he formed him out of the dust of the chemicals, the dust of the earth, and he shaped him and breathed life into him. I always ask people, how old do you think Adam was on day one? If you believe that God did that, he created Adam, day one, how old is he?
Well, judging by my flannel graph and beginners, I would say he was 30 or some. He was at least an adult male. Yeah.
Right, but he's 1 day old. So if God can create a man who's 1 day old, yet he looks 25, can he create a universe that it looks like it takes millions of years for light to get from one planet or from a star to the planet Earth, but it happened in one moment? So the question is, what did God create in the beginning? Now, again, I'm not saying you can't be a Christian if you're old Earth, or even if you believe in macroevolution. There are plenty of Christians who have that view. I don't think it's warranted. Would I say they're a Christian? Yes. Would I say that's not what was believed for 2,000 years? Yeah, for 2,000 years, Christians have believed that God did it a specific way. So then what caused people to start changing their mind about that? Well, the new science, right? What we're discovering about the world itself. And again, if God created it, he can create it how he wants it, when he wants it. He could use evolution. He could guide the processes using evolution. But when we look, I don't think we see I believe that there'd be evidence that that's what he did that's undisputable. And the fact that scientists actually argue about this amongst themselves tells you that it's not undisputable.
Right.
Right? So one guy says, I don't believe in radiocarbon dating because it gives inaccurate numbers from millions of years difference. The other guy says, no, it doesn't. These guys with equal degrees, sometimes they both have Nobel Peace Prizes for their studies, yet they can't agree. So why do I get in the middle of it as though it's a fact when within science itself they can't agree? Right? Transitional forms. You've got plenty of scientists who say we don't have any transitional forms. Then why do we as Christians jump in the middle of it and act as though we do? If it's not an established fact, then that makes no sense to me. And I'm going to stick to what I believe God is capable of doing. And he's a miracle worker. He creates time and space. If he can create time and space, he can create a universe dialed, fine-tuned for life. If he can create living matter from non-living matter, he can create that living matter to look like whatever he wants it to look like. He can do it all. And so that's my view of it. Now again, I'm not saying you're not a Christian if you don't have that view. I am saying that this is where we're going as a church and this is what we believe.
I do get it. I think, I don't know if it's a Christian, non-Christian thing, but it is certainly hard, just like you were just talking about, for a human to wrap their mind around God being outside of time and space. He created it, so therefore he is outside of it. But then I'm like, well, then where is he then? You know, what is that? You know, I don't.
Well, scripturally we call it the third heaven. right? You've got, Scripture talks about the terrestrial world, meaning planets, the celestial world, meaning stars, and then the third heaven. Paul was caught into the third heaven, the spiritual realm. And I believe that there is a spiritual realm, and Colossians 1 says that God even created the angels and all of that in the spiritual realm. And so there is a realm outside of time, space, and matter. Whether you're a naturalist, there has to be, because how does the universe come into existence? If the universe is time, space, and matter, whatever created time, space, and matter has to live outside of time, space, and matter.
And can't be in it and create it at the same time.
So there is another realm here that I think science points to. Naturalists can look at that, and I think theists absolutely have been talking about that from forever. The real eternal world is not matter, physical matter. That is an extension. That's a creation, and the same God who created the first time is going to take it apart, rebuild it. That same God who created life can, and when you die physically, there's a spiritual realm you're a part of outside of time, space, and matter, and God can take you from there and give you a new body. He can do all these things. Theism is an explanation for all these things. Naturalism is a faith that you just have to go, hopefully someday science will give us an answer. It's funny, the scientists will say it's the God of the gaps. Anytime we have something we don't understand, we say God did it. Well, we can
just
say...
like the Romans and Greeks did.
Right. We can say to them, every time you don't have an answer, you say, well, science will someday give us the answer. The God of science, the science of the gaps. And again, I think that the universe speaks forth God's glory, His majesty. Psalm says that you can see it by what is made, the glory of God, right? Romans 1 says that we're without excuse, because what can be known about God at a general level, general revelation, is the universe itself. Mechanisms, organisms that have molecular engines in them, things at the simplest level. Dawkins admits 1,000 sets of the Encyclopedia Britannica was within the cell of our simplest form amoeba. How does that information get there? How does it come together? We have no way to come up with an understanding of how that kind of complexity just comes out of nothing. At the
largest of scales, the universe, or the smallest that we can go, points right back to God, which is interesting because you talked about the gap of science. It does seem like the farther we go down time, the better and better our technology gets, and the more that points towards God, not towards science. So it boils down to me, it feels like it's more of a personal question, an inconvenient truth that people are dealing with, and they don't, if they can't control, and I can see a scientist, because it's like, my job is to get answers, and when they find the answer is, there has to be something there that I can't control, know, or do, or there is something that's bigger than I am created.
Yeah.
That's an inconvenient truth, and I think people get stuck there.
Well, if there's a creator, he gets to set the terms. That's always been the problem from the garden on, right? And, I will say this. Most people I know that have a problem believing in God don't have a problem for scientific reasons, although they will try to figure out a way to create support for their view by hand-picking or cherry-picking things out of science. And when I say science, I mean the views of scientists. Usually they've had some experience that's very painful, something that's happened they don't understand. And they're like, okay, how could there be a God who allows this? Sometimes they'll believe in a deistic God who sets all the conditions up, but then he just lets it run by itself. And the reason he doesn't get involved is we're insignificant. He's so big. He started it. He thought it was a good idea, but he's not going to really get involved. He doesn't really care. Or the God of the Bible, a good, all-knowing, all-powerful, outside of time, space, conscious. There can't be that God, because if there was, he wouldn't allow Hitler or sexual abuse or and those questions right there are painful. They come from painful experiences. And I think the Bible actually answers the question about how this could happen. God chose to build people a universe knowing that he was going to give us the ability to be free will, conscious, relational people. And he knew that it's one thing, it's like when I tell my kids growing up, you need to do this, this, and this, because that, and that's going to happen. And you get to the stage where like, I haven't seen that happen. How do I know that would happen? You know, I want to do what I want to do. Why does he get to be in charge? I'm an adult like he is, sort of a thing. And then I believe God allows the world to go its way for the same reasons that the prodigal son story exists. The father allowed the kid to take his possessions and go into a far country. Not because he hated the kid, but he was hoping that the kid would experience all of his own choices and come to the understanding that everything that the father had said was for his good. He was right. And the son came back and found out something different about his father. First, he found out he was right. He found out that that you know, the father was good in that sense, but he found out something new about God when he came back and said, I'm not worthy to be your son. Can I be a slave? And God said, no, put a ring on his finger. The story reveals a God who is right, a God who lets us go out and choose in hopes that we'll come to our senses and come home. And then we find out something new about God that we maybe didn't understand before. He is a good, loving God who allows this to continue in hopes that we'll come back. And then he went beyond that. The prodigal son story only doesn't go as far as I think God went. God allowed the son to go out into a far country. But the story of our God is a God who left his home to go out to the far country and say, come home. In Christ, God so loved the world that he sent his son into the world to deliver a message to us in person. Come home. Come with me. I will bring you to the Father. I came here for that purpose, to bridge the gap so that you could understand I was right, I'm powerful, I am intelligent, I am those things, but I also love you and I want you no matter what you've done. And so, while we're on planet Earth, there's things that the Bible is very clear that God says he's going to allow to happen. And it started in the garden. There was a devil, there was free will, there were consequences, and God told us what they were. We didn't believe him. And God holds the world together, and he's continuing on, and he waits to return. Someday he is going to return. The one who created the world will, last time he flooded it, now he's going to burn it up and recreate it. And those who said yes to him are going to be repopulated on a new heaven and a new earth with God walking with us, God the Son walking with us, as it was intended in the garden. God walked with man in the garden until sin. That's going to be restored for all those who have decided God's right and he's good. And that's the way it's going to end up. The God who can create it can recreate it. And the God who's outside of time, space, and matter is working even now. And he's involved. We just, when we don't see it directly, we don't understand it, we frail human beings, we limited human beings think because we can't see it, it's all there is. So he must not be there, he must not care. So this is sort of what we're doing in this series. We're going to be talking about the soul. We're going to be talking about the resurrection, the Bible itself, eternity. We're going to be talking about this timeless, spaceless sort of understanding of the universe and of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, I don't remember who it was. I think it was Hawking who wrote The Story of Everything, or something along those lines.
Oh, yeah.
And he became an unbeliever, and because of the disease and stuff that he had. And so he tried to come up with a theory of everything, and that's what it was.
Theory of everything,
and
that's right.
we have a hope better in that the one who wrote our understanding of everything, he rose from the dead.
Mm-hmm.
Richard Dawkins, Hawking, these guys, they're still in the grave.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm looking forward to this series.
But it all comes down to a couple of things. I think for home group leaders, it is for our people to know there are facts, because we get a hit a lot with everyone knows this, everyone knows that. There are facts that are out there that you can find, you can send to people that you're in relationship with in your network, wherever that is. And the second thing is their doubt, their issues, and I even think this goes with Christians too. It all comes down to, it might be a little deeper, more personal issue, and maybe it doesn't have to do with science at all.
Yeah, that's right. Excuse me. And there's some great books out there that I think I hope our people will get into. Frank Turek wrote, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. And it's true, I don't have enough faith to be an atheist.
Mm-hmm.
It takes way more faith to be an atheist, in my view.
Mm-hmm.
Great book. Stealing from God, another great book he wrote. Sean McDowell's written a bunch of great stuff. There's some great, J. Warner Wallace comes from a cold case detective perspective. Case for a Creator on this subject. Case for Christ, Lee Strobel. Great books out there. I'm hoping that our people will dive in. Remember, our goal is we want to raise kids who are ready for
Mm-hmm.
what they're going to face.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to equip our people. And we want to reach lost people. Well, guys, I'm looking forward to next week's series on the Bible, the Unbelievable book, the Unbelievable Bible, and we'll be diving into that. And I look forward to seeing you if you're at all the campuses this week. God bless you. Make sure you check in on the app so we know you're there. Look into these resources, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, Lance.